Hello people, good morning, welcome to Literature Vidya. I am Ankita and today we are going to begin a series of lectures on the history of English literature, and we are going to begin with the age of Renaissance. So let's begin. The age of Renaissance. What is the time period of the age of Renaissance? So the age of Renaissance is said to have begun in 1485 and it ended in 1660s. Okay, it is said that around 1400 the world order changed, right? The world changed. 1400 के आसपास दुनिया बदली. And why? Because in 1485 we have the War of Roses coming to end. बेसिकली हमारा जो वॉर ऑफ रोजेस है वो 30 साल चलता है, फ्रॉम 1453 to 1485. Right, the War of Roses is fought between the Yorks and the Lancastrians. But finally, in 1485, this War of Roses comes to an end. And there is a new dynasty that's established out. That's called the Tudor dynasty. Okay. और हमारे रेनेसां पे हम किस डायनेस्टी पे फोकस करेंगे? We are going to focus on the Tudor dynasty. Okay. Then what another important thing happened that led to the change in the world order? पहला War of Roses खत्म होता है, and then we have a Tudor dynasty coming in. Second is the invention of printing press taking place. Very very important. Printing press invent कर दी जाती है by William Caxton. Question asked thousands of time in the exam, whether it's your set exams or your net exams. So you have to remember invention of printing press by William Caxton, right? Then the first book that was printed of this printing press was Thomas Mallory Le Morte d'Arthur. पहली book जो print की गई थी from Caxton's printing press was Thomas Mallory Le Morte d'Arthur. Okay, I hope you are now clear. और जो थर्ड इम्पोर्टेंट चीज होती है in that time period, okay, and this printing press was invented from 1475 to 1476. You're normally confused. 1475 और 1476 में ही इन्वेंट हुई थी. You look at the option whether 1475 पूछा हुआ है तो 1475 वरना 1476, right? So it is 1475 to 1476 that our printing press was invented by William Caxton, and the first book that was published was Thomas Morley's Le Morte d'Arthur. Right. The third important thing that happens is 1492 discovery of America by Christopher Columbus. Right. So तीन important चीज होती है. Right. By the end of 1400 that changes the world order. पहला हमारा War of Roses comes to an end. Right. और Tudor dynasty establish हो जाती है. दूसरी हमारे कैक्सटन जी प्रिंटिंग प्रेस एस्टैब्लिश कर देता है, राइट, 1475-76 में. तीसरा जो हमारे कोलंबस हैं, ही finds America, a new space, a new land, right, in 1492. Very very important. All these dates are very important. Please remember them. Okay, they have been asked in the exams. Then let's move forward. So now you know what led to Renaissance now, right? So what is Renaissance? Renaissance is a birth of learning and culture, right? It's said to be a rebirth of learning and culture, which reached its peak in Italy. और Renaissance कहाँ पर peak पर था? It reached its peak in Italy in the early 16th century. And in Britain, तो Renaissance जो था, जहाँ पे culture और learning का rebirth होता है, वो अपना peak इटली में, it reaches its peak in Italy, and in Britain it reaches its peak during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. So अब Queen Elizabeth I comes to throne in 1558. Remember these dates, they have been asked. Queen Elizabeth comes to throne in 1558 and she rules till 1603. Right? Around 44 years she is ruling. Yes. 1558 में she comes on the throne and 1603 तक she is ruling. Remember the time period during which she is ruling, right? So now let's see, before Queen Elizabeth, who was there? It was Queen Elizabeth's father, Henry VIII, right? तो हमारा ट्यूडर किंग आता है जब रेनेसां शुरू होता है, right? After the fight of the Yorks and the Lancastrians, there is a Tudor dynasty that's established, and the king that comes over is Henry VIII, right? He comes to throne in 1509. 1509 में वो throne पे आता है, and he's there on the throne till 1547, and after he gets down from the throne, Queen Elizabeth comes over on the throne on 1558, right? तो 1509 से 1547 तक Henry VIII is on the throne, right? And this Henry VIII has a very interesting story. He wanted to have a son. उसे एक बेटा चाहिए था जो उसकी राजगद्दी संभाल सके, right? And just to have a son, he married 6 times. Okay. Henry VIII came to throne 1509 to 1547 in order to have a son. A heir of his line, Henry married 6 times. Okay. तो उसकी 6 बीवियां थी. अब 6 बीवियों से उसको एक बेटा और 2 बेटी हुई. एक बेटा कौन था? एडवर्ड 6. एडवर्ड 6 was the son जो उसको एक बीवी से हुआ, and he had 2 daughters. One was Elizabeth I and another was Mary I. Okay. So उसके 3 बच्चे हुए from 6 marriages. 1 son, Edward 6, 2 daughters, Elizabeth I and Mary I. Okay. Now अब क्या था कि हेनरी जो था, हमारे हेनरी VIII जो थे, उन्होंने सिस्टम में बहुत ज्यादा बदलाव लाने की कोशिश करी, राइट? ही वांटेड टू चेंज द एग्जिस्टिंग ऑर्डर ऑफ थिंग्स. तो व्हाई डिड ही वांटेड टू डू दैट? बिकॉज हेनरी जो थे वो अपनी पहली शादी को annul कराकर ही वांटेड टू मैरी समवन एल्स, राइट? So he wanted to first annul his first marriage with Catherine of Aragon, right? कैथरीन और एरागॉन को डिवोर्स देना चाहते थे. ही वांटेड टू डिवोर्स कैथरीन ऑफ एरागॉन. और इससे पहले सिस्टम में डिवोर्स का कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं था. तो व्हेन ही सेड ही वांटेड टू डिवोर्स, तो ऐसा हो गया जैसे पता नहीं उसने क्या बोल दिया. नाउडेज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ डिवोर्स इज वेरी कॉमन, बट एट दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम इट वाज लाइक अ बिग थिंग टू से, राइट? And hence he came in direct conflict with the Catholic Church because it was against the norms of the Catholic Church. तो अब हेनरी VIII जो है वो कैथोलिक चर्च के साथ डायरेक्ट फाइट में आ चुके हैं. ओके. तो अब हेनरी VIII और कैथोलिक चर्च के बीच में फुल फाइट का माहौल है. और उस टाइम पे जो हमारे पोप थे कैथोलिक चर्च के, दैट वाज क्लेमेंट VII, राइट? क्लेमेंट VII हमारे पोप थे उस टाइम जब हेनरी VIII ने डिवोर्स की बात की थी. ओके. He ended. So what did he do? Since the Catholic Church did not allow Henry VIII to divorce his first wife and marry someone else, right? What did he do? He ended the rule of the Catholic Church. तो उसने अब गुस्से में आके क्या किया? He ended. उसने कहा the rule of the Catholic Church in England and closed and destroyed the monasteries, right? तो अब उसने जो कैथोलिक चर्च था इंग्लैंड का, उसका रूल ही बंद कर दिया और उसने सारी मोनेस्ट्रीज वगैरह सब डिस्ट्रॉय कर दी, राइट? At that point in time, these monasteries, these churches were the center of culture and learning. And now Henry VIII has destroyed the churches, has destroyed the monasteries, right? तो अब basically जो existing culture, existing center of learning, existing ideas, ये सब destroy हो गए थे with the destruction of the church, right? And now, after he destroyed the Catholic Church, he declared himself the head of the state and the head of the church. तो अब उसने अपने आप को full power दे दी थी, right? उसने अपने आप को full authority दे दी थी, right? And now king became the defender of the faith and the person most closest to God. Okay. तो अब this event is said to have brought in the concept of reformation, right? तो अब जो हमारा existing faith, attitude, culture, belief system, ये सब डिस्ट्रक्ट हो गया था with the destruction of the churches, right? And the destruction of the monasteries. And now with reformation coming in, we have a new way of thinking coming in, right? यहाँ पर king was the defender of faith and hence closest to God. Okay. तो अब इंग्लैंड क्या हो गया था? अब इंग्लैंड विद दिस हैपनिंग कन्वर्टेड फ्रॉम कैथोलिसिज्म टू प्रोटेस्टेंट, राइट? तो अब इंग्लैंड प्रोटेस्टेंट बन चुका था. उसके पॉलिटिकल और रिलीजियस आइडियाज अब रीडिफाइन हो रहे थे, राइट? और इट इज सेड हु began this concept of Protestantism. So it originated with Martin Luther 95 Theses in Wittenberg in 1517. Remember, this is important, right? Protestantism is said to have begun with Martin Luther presenting his 95 theses in Wittenberg in 1517. Remember Martin Luther, 95 theses and 1917, and this is said to be the origin point of Protestantism. Okay, this became the national religion and king became the head of the church. अब king के पास full authority थी, he became the head of the church, he became the head of the state, right? तो उसने अपने आप को full power और full authority दे दी थी, राइट? तो अब एक बार ये देख लेते हैं मार्टिन लूथर की 95 थीसिस क्या है, राइट? मार्टिन लूथर की 95 थीसिस जो थी वो 1517 में आई थी, यस, और ओरिजिनल लैंग्वेज उसकी थी लेटिन. Remember this is important. Martin Luther 95 thesis 1517 में आई थी, ओरिजिनल लैंग्वेज लेटिन, राइट? और ये किस पे थी? It was disputation on power and efficiency of indulgence, right? Who was Martin Luther? Martin Luther was a professor of moral theology at the University of Wittenberg, right? जो हमारे मार्टिन लूथर थे वो मॉरल थियोलॉजी के प्रोफेसर थे यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ विटनबर्ग में, राइट? And he is said to have launched the Protestant Reformation. Okay, and he is said to have brought about a radical revolution in the belief that affected the nation. Okay, and another such shock came to the nation with Charles Darwin on the origin of species, but this came much later, right? It came in 1859. We are in 1517, right? When just Protestantism has just started, right? Now Charles Darwin is going to come 1859. Victorian age में वो तहलका मचाएंगे, right? You have to remember, but why? Because it was Charles Darwin जिसने evolution की theory दी थी, जिसने survival of fittest का concept दिया था हमें, right? और उसने सारी जो भी विक्टोरियन एज की रिलीजियस बिलीफ्स और जो भी उनकी कल्चरल बिलीफ्स, जो बिब्लिकल बिलीफ्स थी, उन सबको चैलेंज कर दिया था, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाई वो विक्टोरियन एज के टाइम पे काफी बड़ा शौक था. वी विल डिस्कस अबाउट दिस आल्सो व्हेन वी रीड द विक्टोरियन एज. ओके, तो अभी हमें क्या याद रखना है? मार्टिन लूथर किंग और उसकी 95 थीसिस पब्लिश्ड इन द ईयर 1517. ओके, नाउ अब क्या है? हेनरी 8 broke with Rome, right? मतलब he broke with the Catholic Church, है ना? Why? Because he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn and divorce Catherine of Aragon, है ना? उसको Anne Boleyn से शादी करनी थी and he wanted to divorce Catherine of Aragon. उसको divorce लेना था, right? But जो हमारे पोप थे Clement VII, right? He did not allow it. पोप जो थे Clement VII, उन्होंने इसको allow नहीं किया, right? And he secretly, but still Henry VIII ने secretly Anne Boleyn से शादी कर ली, and he was excommunicated from the church. उसको चर्च से excommunicate कर दिया गया था. तो उसने क्या किया? उसने बेसिकली जो चर्चेस थे या जो पोप था उन सबको वहां से हटा दिया, चर्चेस और मोनेस्ट्रीज को डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिया, राइट? एंड ही declared the act of supremacy, that the king is supreme, he is the head of the state, he is the head of the church, right? So 1534 में he declared the act of supremacy. ठीक है? This act made him and all his heir supreme head of the Church of England. Pope no longer had religious authority in England, right? But this breakup with Rome was not a isolated movement. सिर्फ यही एक event was not responsible for Henry VIII's breakup with Rome. There were also other people who supported this movement, right? Like मार्टिन लूथर, हम ऑलरेडी बात कर चुके हैं उसकी 95 थीसिस की, और फिर हमारे इरास्मस भी थे जिसने सपोर्ट किया था इस कॉन्सेप्ट को, राइट? So let's see who were the people who supported this movement. So the first individual who supported this was a Dutch scholar, Erasmus, right? Who was enthusiastic for the classical learning. So जो हमारे Dutch scholar थे Erasmus, he supported this act of supremacy, and that Erasmus जो थे, he was very very enthusiastic about the concept of classical learning, right? And he wanted the classical learning to be revived back, and this is what led to Renaissance, reviving back the classical learning, right? And he wrote all this in his work Praise of Folly. Remember Erasmus' work Praise of Folly, right? Here he shows his contempt to the Catholic monasteries and challenges the corruption in the Catholic Church. तो अब Erasmus के साथ जो चीज है वो ये है कि वो classical learning को revive back करना चाहता था. He was an individual who was not against the Catholic Church. What was he against? He was against the prevailing corruption in the Catholic Church, right? और 1516 में produced a Greek edition of scriptures in place of the Latin one. और इसने 1516 में ग्रीक एडिशन निकाला स्क्रिप्चर्स का. इनिशियली हम कौन सा पढ़ रहे थे? वी वर रीडिंग द लेटिन स्क्रिप्चर्स एंड नाउ एरास्मस हैज टेकन आउट अ ग्रीक एडिशन. ठीक है, इज इट क्लियर? अब इरास्मस जो थे, ही वॉज अ फ्रेंड विद सर थॉमस मूर, और सर थॉमस मूर को बिहेड कर दिया था. वाई? बिकॉज ही वॉज नॉट सपोर्टिंग हेनरी एट्स डिवोर्स विद कैथरीन ऑफ एरागॉन. उसने सपोर्ट नहीं दिखाया था थॉमस मूर ने, तो उसको बिहेड कर दिया गया था. एंड इरास्मस वॉज फ्रेंड्स विद हिम. And the work, Praise of Folly, said to have prepared the grounds for Protestantism, right? But I've already told you, उसका aim बिल्कुल भी ये नहीं था कि he breaks away from the Catholic Church. He just wanted to purify it and rip the corruption out of the church, right? That's what his major goal is, and that is what differentiates Erasmus with Martin Luther, who has presented us with the 95 thesis, right? Why? Because he, जो हमारे Martin Luther थे, he wanted and he wasn't ready to submit to the Pope's authority, right? Erasmus को पोप की अथॉरिटी से कोई दिक्कत नहीं थी. उसको प्रॉब्लम जो थी वो करप्शन के साथ थी जो चर्च में थी. बट मार्टिन लूथर किंग जो था, he refused to submit to the Pope's authority. Okay? और 1517 में, as we have already discussed this, 1517 में he pinned to the chapel door the 95 theses, right? Against the sale of papal indulgences, right? Is it clear? राइट? तो दो इवेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है हमारे पास. 1516, 1517. 1516 में ग्रीक एडिशन जो होता है वो प्रोड्यूस होता है ऑफ द स्क्रिप्चर्स. प्रेज ऑफ फॉली लिखी जाती है. उसके बाद में 1517 में हम 95 थीसिस लिखते हैं, राइट? और ये दो मूवमेंट जो होते हैं वो हमारे जो हेनरी 8 होते हैं, जो 1534 में एक्ट ऑफ सुप्रीमेसी डिक्लेयर करते हैं लेटर, उसको सपोर्ट देते हैं ये दो, विच ऑलरेडी हैपेंड. तो मतलब 1534 एक्ट ऑफ सुप्रीमेसी जो है वो बाद में होता है. उससे पहले ये दो इवेंट हो चुके होते हैं. 95 थीसिस आ चुकी होती है और द प्रेज ऑफ फॉली लिखी जा चुकी होती है. ये अपने आइडियाज प्रेजेंट कर चुके होते हैं एंड ये आइडियाज बाद में हेनरी 8 को सपोर्ट करते हैं व्हेन ही डिक्लेयर्स द एक्ट ऑफ सुप्रीमेसी इन 1534. ओके, I hope I have set the grounds for the beginning of Renaissance and what led to us reviving back the classical learning and leaving behind all of this, right? And Luther was somebody who was also constantly opposing. जो हमारे पोप ने excommunicate कर दिया था हमारे किंग को, उसको भी लूथर ने constantly oppose किया था उस आइडिया को भी. ठीक है? So I think I have set you the basic history of what led to Renaissance, right? Now we are going to read further in the next lecture. So till then, study hard, work hard. If you like the lecture, please share it with your friend, give your important feedbacks, subscribe to the channel. Goodbye. See you.